Hello everybody, hope you're doing marvellously well. In this episode, I travelled to Metropolis. We went there, that was my wife and I, to see an unveiling of a new Genelec speaker. Well, speakers, you're going to get to see all about it. Plus, of course, we did a little bit of a tour of Metropolis. So, without further ado, let's check out the video. Alex, what room is this?
So, welcome to Studio A at Metropolis. This whole building, Metropolis Studios, was built and opened around 1989. And one of our first and biggest clients here was Queen, and they came in and recorded parts of Innuendo here. Huge, exciting thing for us, and a lot of the fans love it. We have a lot of fans kind of come through every year. And, yeah, it's cool.
Queen, I've not heard of them.
No.
They're only my favourite band.
Yeah.
All right.
And you can also see the video for Headlong was shot in this studio. You can see the control room and the live room, which is all blacked up, and a lot of the building was shot in that video.
Fantastic. So what do we have in this room? We have a 9000J.
Yes. Yeah, this 9000J. This has been here for a while. Lovely console. We've got mostly SSLs in the building. Seen a lot of various records, great records, kind of recorded on this. Most recently, Adele did. We did piano. I think the piano for 25 for Hello was recorded in this room.
Lovely.
So yeah, it's seen a lot of history.
Great outboard here. I see we've got some GML EQs, we've got the prisms.
It's a nice Pultec stuff. Manly, yeah, prism stuff. We've also got the EQPs and the mid-range version as well, the MEQs as well, which is quite cool to be able to have both of those. And then on the other side we've got some distressors, 1176s, some of the Summit style Pultecs, DBXs, and Al Smart. That's the C1, I believe. Which is similar kind of SSL bus style compressor. Urban American clients come through. They love the space.
Yep.
It's quite neutral, but they like the kind of big open space. They have a lot of people in here. They like to listen big on big monitors most of the time. In fact, throughout the summer we've had Future here, Travis Scott, Young Thug, most of the big US urban guys coming through the door, which has been great.
Wonderful. So the tech shop.
Yeah, welcome to the tech department here at Metropolis. We've got various bits of gear here, all kind of waiting to be repaired or waiting to go back in the desks. At the moment, our Neve VR console up in Studio C is getting quite a lot of work. You've got a couple of channels here ready to go back in the console. One of our tech guys, Jake, is currently taking all the channels apart, and they're all getting cleaned, recapped. New pots being put on. It's getting a full workover. So it's they're a lovely console, great mixing consoles, but they do suffer from overheating and components kind of burning out and deteriorating quite quickly. So they need a lot of maintenance, the Neves, but they do sound great. And yeah, a couple from the G series and the K series that we've got upstairs as well. And yeah, various other bits and pieces.
So G plus, and then you have a K and a J.
And a J, and then the Neve VR.
And the Neve VR,
yeah,
nice.
So a nice selection, yeah. Yeah, we're always interested in kind of expanding a bit, so we might swap one of them out in a few years' time. Also doing in the works a refurb of Studio A in partnership with Genelec, so hopefully that'll be going ahead. The whole thing will be getting a bit of a facelift, which would be great.
Wonderful.
Hasn't seen obviously since it opened in 1989.
Great.
Studio B was refurbed and Genelec installed their mains in there a couple of years ago, and that had a whole new refabric. And so these guys really, they keep the kind of building going between the 4 recording studios and the 5 mastering rooms. There's a lot of equipment to be serviced and a lot of stuff that needs to be looked at, and it's a full-time job, and they keep us going. Yeah.
But that's great. It's great that you have techs.
Yes, yeah, not many places
Have
really,
full-time techs anymore.
no, and it's it's a bit of a luxury, but it really makes a difference to how we operate.
Wonderful. Andy, how are you?
Very well, Warren.
Good. We've been listening to this.
Yeah.
We've been loving it. Tell us about it.
Okay, so we're here at Metropolis today, and this is kind of a continuation, an addition to our Wands family. So the Wands came about 3 or 4 years ago with the 8351, and now we've done an update for the 8351B, and we've got a smaller family, including the 8341, 8331. So at Genelec, what we try and do is provide monitoring systems that will work in any environment, small rooms up to much bigger rooms, depending on listening distance, room volume, all that kind of thing.
Marvellous. What we got going on here? The not subwoofer.
So, in addition, the not subwoofer. So, in addition to the Wands, the concept with the W371 is to extend what the Wands give you. So, in the Wands, we've got phenomenal ability to kind of give you a solid stereo image, both on axis, off axis. And also dealing with a point source. So point source technology is essentially having the tweeter, mid-range, and the drivers all radiating and hitting you at the same time. So you get a very coherent image. Now, with the woofer stand, we can extend that right down. So we've got a full frequency system that's freestanding, and there's also kind of some clever technology in there via DSP that allows it to adapt to the room and give you a system that is efficient and does a huge, kind of a great job of getting audio to you in a coherent manner.
I think what everybody is loving about it, and is I think the main thing I'm taking away from it, is the fact that there's not this sort of disconnected sub and mains feel. Like, I've got my mains and there's my sub, and everybody sort of claims to try and do that. I suppose. I mean, that is the purpose of a subwoofer. Isn't it? Is to just kind of add what's missing. But what generally happens as you go in room, I'm sure everybody's experienced this, is you basically hear your mains and then you hear like, You just hear 20 and 40 going on down there. And it's nice, you turn it on and off. This feels like it's just continuing the full range.
Absolutely. So in music, well, in post-production, for example, you would see a 5.1, where you would have a single element that's looking after all that rumble, all the effects, explosions, that kind of thing.
Sure.
If you try and achieve that in music, you will get an element that is added to the main system, so kick drums, bass drums, and even though subwoofers are omnidirectional in their nature, I guarantee you will hear the knock of a kick drum, and if that sub isn't in the centre or off to one side, you will be pulled to that. So generally we would try and accommodate for music production a pair of subs, so you get a nice balanced system, but you still get that experience of sub holds in the frequency response, main speakers. So what this system does is we've got the ability to cross over at any point from 500 hertz all the way down. So we've got the ability to adapt this woofer system to the mains to have a seamless, coherent system. So it's just a pure extension of that low-end energy. So excellent imaging, excellent low-end extension. That's the kind of crux of it.
So should we bring in Giles to explain how?
Absolutely.
Hey, Giles.
Hey.
How are you?
Good.
So how did you do this?
Well, maybe start where we came from. Started off with a research project, actually, into room responses. We're looking at lots of data from the existing autocal function, and we realised there's the big problem of normally heavy notches, around about 80 to 150 hertz in the rooms. So it's led us to dig into, the source of these problems, where they come from. Numerous tests, simulations, building room models, and things like that. And we, came up to determining where they come from, and the idea was to make a loudspeaker unit to reduce the problem of the room and these heavy notches in most cases. So this is where we came up with the adaptive woofer system. The idea is that it adapts to the room to minimise the influence of the room at your listener position. So it has two main technologies behind it. The first is the complementary mode. So we measure the individual responses of the drivers, look at the responses, determine how we should best use the drivers individually to ensure that you get the best response at the listener position. So it's relying on the fact that we have the two drivers in different positions, and they give the different room response. We can work with that. The other modes of operation are the directivity control. So we use active directivity control to shape how the directivity pattern is. So in a lot of our speakers, we do a lot of work with the directivity guides to ensure we get a decent controlled directivity. But once you go down lower frequencies, you lose that directivity control, unless you have a massive baffle or a massive drive unit. So in this case, we've used as active cancellation, basically. So we use different filter sets to manipulate the directivity of the speaker. So we have a continued directivity, which means that we can take the directivity from the main monitor and continue it right down to about 50 Hz. So we can control the directivity using both drivers in the overlap region from about 50 to 250 Hz. And then we have a number of null operation modes. So we can focus nulls, like quieter zones, towards the direction of the main reflections in the room, be it back wall, floor, side wall.
Fantastic. I mean, the end result is, for anybody watching, is frankly, it sort of just makes the sound, like I said, we were talking about earlier, feel connected. One of the things when you were talking about, like in a 5-1 situation, like not everybody, but most people have experienced that. They've gone to either movie theatres, obviously, or they have a home theatre environment. It's great for movies and stuff to have that extended low end, but it doesn't feel like real life. It is this sort of hyper real, sort of coloration. What was interesting is when we went to one of the mix rooms, we soloed them and listened to them. And that was actually quite revealing, because most of the times when I'm soloing subs, I'm just hearing, and which is all well and good. But it felt very, very connected. When you pulled them in and out, it just felt like it was... God, I wish there was the right words to, because complementary is the obvious thing to say, which is obviously what they're designed to do.
Yeah.
But it gets rid of that idea we were talking about earlier of just sort of pushing the sub on and off to impress the client.
Yes.
It actually feels like a tool that I could use in a mix, as opposed to just something to go, hey, you wanna fill the 808? Woo! I don't really know. There's such a naive way I'm explaining it, but I understand what you're trying to do.
No, it's right. It's right. You've got it fills in. Well, it extends the frequency response of this, but also what Giles touched upon is the nulls that you experience in a room, and typically they'll be around 100 Hz to 150 Hz. Snare drums, that's the big thing. Losing that impact and that weight and that sense of authority with the track. With a system like this, you get that punch, that coherency, that phantom center.
I want to hear mixes done on this. Because when we were in the mix room listening to some great mixes and a couple of things that I knew, one of the things I found was like, I'm thinking to myself, I wonder if, whoever mixed that song would have made, different choices. Because one of the things, obviously, that these have a reputation for is an increase front to back. There's more depth in them. I love 1032s. I've been using them since blah, 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 since 90-something. And the great thing about them is, obviously they're revolutionary for the time. Powered speaker, like the first high-quality powered speaker. But when these came out and they first brought them over for me to listen, I was like, this is a very modern speaker, because the way everybody, regardless of the loudness wars, whether you want to talk about, everybody's slamming louder and louder. More virtual instruments are being used now than ever before. And those are all already EQ'd and compressed and limited, so that when you play the sound is just there. And a speaker with increased depth is a good idea, because it allows us now to go, oh, okay, I've got all these really heavily EQ'd and compressed tracks. How do I actually put them in a spectrum so that I can actually feel like my music is more than just splat, left and right hitting you in the head. Anyway, I'm waffling on, but I'm definitely impressed. And I think the big thing Eric was talking about there, and I'm sure you guys touch on as well, is the idea that you can move these from room to room and reproduce the results.
It's a big part of what we're about. Being able to have performance in a room that allows you to make positive decisions, be on the front foot, and then have that translate. So the idea of going in the car, going in the kitchen, checking references, to try and minimise that as much as possible, so that your mix time is moving the project forward rather than guessing back and forward. And also, if you're moving from room to room, carrying that reference with you. If you've got reference tracks, you calibrate the system, and you are in a familiar place. And then from that point, you can then make decisions about the room, decisions about kick drum treatments, what compressors you're using, EQs, all that kind of thing, to make you feel at home and confident in the creative decisions that you're making. I think that's the crux of what we're talking about here with all of these systems, the ability to exist in the real world and exist from room to room,
Yeah, it's interesting growing up like everybody in the business pretty much on a pair of NS10s. you made music in spite of the speakers.
Yes.
You know, you knew there was like, what, 7 dB at 1.5K?
Yeah.
Huge spike.
Using that as a reference, right, okay, so I know I'm hearing this, but I've got to bear in mind.
Yeah, for me it was like,
telling
if the
me.
snare drum was offensive and the electric guitars were ripping my ears off, I knew it was going to sound good. And the thing is, we're moving, you know, everybody's moving towards speakers that are accurate.
Yeah.
And I am going to be intrigued as like some of the best mixers in the world start mixing, you know, on these systems to see the kind of decisions they're going to be able to make. Yeah, it's interesting.
Kind of sophisticated choices in terms of panning, movement, front to back, reverb tails. These kinds of monitors allow you to make those decisions, and all that ear candy, stuff that you want to kind of put in there and really make things dance. You can really get an insight on that. We can go forensic with these. We can kind of make them sound warm, vibey. We can accentuate certain parts of the system, or we can give you something that is completely accurate that will translate. So that's it's flexibility, I think, is the real key.
Adapting to the different rooms. You still want the same to be in every room, and this adaptive woofer system takes that, or minimises the difference between the rooms to ensure that you stick this in a room nearly anywhere. It's much more flexible in placement than normal speakers, and you will get the same response.
Eric Horstman, how are you, my friend?
Good, nice to meet you.
Good to meet you too. We just had a little demonstration of the immersive capabilities of the Genelec in this room, and it's actually I've been in a couple of immersive rooms, and you're using a little less speakers, but I didn't really, quite frankly, feel that limited. It's pretty amazing. It was a great demo. So
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yeah.
But I want to ask you a little bit before we talk about the immersive setup. I want to ask you a little bit about yourself, because I know that you came up using immersive, hence why you've got this role at Genelec.
I have quite a background in the whole immersive technology, because I was responsible for the first German Dolby Atmos mixing stage, theatrical mixing stage, that we've built in a studio south of Berlin in Potsdam, and it was in 2012. So basically, that's quite a long time ago that I got involved into the whole immersive world of Dolby Atmos, and it actually just took my attention immediately. And since then, I'm working in everything that's related to immersive technology. It's not only post, but also now getting more and more into music applications, gaming. It's a very interesting topic for immersive stuff. Yeah, and I love it because it's
amazing. It's really, really cool. Well, it was a great demo. I really appreciate it. We had a recording that was done in a church with a jazz ensemble, which was fantastic. We had a little bit of film and TV in there, a bit of movie,
of course,
which was great. The thing I've enjoyed about Atmos, and I've been in a couple of rooms now, once you've heard it, you can't really unhear it. I'll tell you that. Anybody that's had that experience. Now, look, obviously, it's not a cheap solution. It's not like, buy a pair of speakers and you've got it. But once you've heard it, it's pretty hard to unhear it. It makes stereo feel a little lax, shall we say, I suppose is a polite way of putting it. Because it gives you that real-world experience. You're being surrounded by sound just like you are every second of your day. With the new stuff that you guys have brought out, what have you, in this room in particular, what have you got going? I don't see the subsystem. Is it here?
The subsystem is just behind the console.
Okay.
So we're using two subwoofers here in that particular pop-up setup, because that room has not been designed to be an immersive room, but it's a temporary immersive room. We're using two 15-inch subwoofers, 7380 models.
Yeah.
And the front, we're using just a brand new 51B versions, 3-way coaxial speakers, and the small one, 41s on the ceiling level. So it's basically a 7.1.4 speaker layout that we're using.
Wonderful. The quick question. So I have heard these, but these have been upgraded. What have they been changed?
These have been upgraded. So we added, basically, the whole interior has changed. Basically, we kept the outside cover. We have new amplifiers, new woofers inside, a new coaxial mid and high frequency driver that gives us more headroom, more SPL, less distortion, and we increased also the capabilities in terms of the room correction capabilities that we have in all our DSP-based SAM speakers. The 8351B version, just a brand new version. In the middle, you can see the eye, which is the Clone Wars eye kind of thing, which is the mid and high range tweeter.
Yep.
Behind the openings on the bottom and on the top, there are two oval woofers behind them. So all of the woofers are built in-house in Finland, and all of the speakers are also built by hand in our factory in Iisalmi in Finland. And we're using recycled aluminium for the enclosure. So sustainability is a very big topic for Genelec since the beginning. So that's why all our products are basically built with a sustainability idea in mind.
We were in the mastering room, and we'll probably go back there and do a little bit there as well. We were in the mastering room, and what I like about this system, and it's obvious, at least it's obvious to me, and I'm sure to many people, what you're doing, is you're getting, and this is a wrong terminology, but you're getting rid of that sort of idea of separation of sound. Because when I go to even mastering studios, I feel like I've got 20 to 40 hertz sub, and then everything else.
Yeah.
You know, and that's an oversimplification. But you tend to, there's no connectivity in the sound. And what I liked about that mastering room, about that experience, you know, it was only in stereo, obviously, was the fact that I just felt like I was hearing one thing.
Exactly.
I wasn't hearing this separated, oh my God, you've got a really nice sub. You know, it was pretty remarkable.
But that's exactly the idea behind the concept. Actually, to use or to give the impression that it's one speaker that extends the frequency range to the deepest octave, basically. That's the idea.
And when Paul Stewart from Genelec in America first brought these over, he was the A's, sorry, not the B's. But the one thing that I think is quite remarkable is the depth.
Yes.
You've got the biggest front to back, I know, of any speakers at the moment, which I really, really enjoy, and I think is actually very modern, because let's be honest, everything is printed loud and proud these days. Even though apparently the loudness wars are over, it's still a reality that everybody is limiting everything to try and get more and more things forward. And the problem is when everything being forward, you know, you just don't know what you're doing. And a lot of speakers that were designed to reproduce volume, and especially high mids, mean that, you know, you just can't see where you're placing stuff.
That's true.
So these have the highest amount of depth that I know on the market.
Yeah, very detailed reproduction. That's true. Even also at low volume. That's also something that's critical to some speakers. Because, I mean, we all used to hear loud.
Yeah.
And some speakers, you have to drive them loud in order to get the full picture.
Right.
You can't drive them at low volume. And with that principle, especially with the coax system, we get there pretty well, I think.
I want to hear things mixed on these speakers.
Yeah.
That's what I want to hear, because when we got to hear all of the range with the woofer system, I'm going to paraphrase it as that, because we were starting to listen to some classic mixes, and I played some stuff that I'm familiar with, classic things, some of the best mixing of all time, and you start to realise that's not how you're used to hearing those mixes. I would love to have a Bob Clearmount mix through these. Somebody who I respect and I know, you know, a Spike Stent, a Mark Ender, you know, one of the great mixers of our time. Because the detail is there and the depth is there. I want to see what they can do with that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Fully agree.
That's something I know you were talking off camera about ideas and stuff. That's something I would probably push. I mean,
I mean, we have a pair of the 51s down here in Studio B, and Studio A is just about to be refurbished here in Metropolis.
Yeah.
And they're going to get coax as a near field system as well.
Right.
So there's a lot of stuff coming out here, but yeah, definitely.
So I want to see how it affects people's decision making.
Yeah. I think there's one benefit of that system that can help during the mix process, that you have a very, very wide sweet spot.
Yeah.
So you can actually even judge things being outside of the sweet spot, right?
Yeah.
I mean, of course, your stereo perception loses, it's gone basically, but you don't have coloration in sound. And this is something that's also important when you work with client. You probably know best. People are walking around the console or behind, they're sitting on the couch somewhere, lazy, flying around. They will experience no change in coloration wherever they are, depending on behind the speakers. And this is something that's pretty interesting as well. There are other concepts of other manufacturers to have this very narrow, very minimal sweet spot, but once you move out like 5 or 10 centimeters, the whole picture is gone. And this is different here. And this is something I really like with that. And obviously we take that principle, especially in immersive formats, to cover the room, basically, because that is a thing of the speakers that really helps us to create this immersive dome around the audience.
I think the other thing that was worth mentioning that was in the first part of the presentation is the fact that the system is trying to help take away some of the coloration of the room.
Yes.
I think it's an oversimplified way of explaining it. I've been in rooms that are I've been in anechoic chambers, but I've also been in rooms that are really, really flat from a perspective of, you know, being a mastering studio. But even then, there is coloration. And most importantly, even 10 supposedly really well-designed acoustic rooms, you take your speakers from one room to another, they all sound different.
It might not work.
Yeah, I mean, I've never met an acoustic engineer that actually agrees with another one. Have you? Have you ever, whenever I do an interview with an acoustic engineer, there's another acoustic engineer commenting that he's not right. And then I'll interview that guy and then another guy.
So it is. I mean, everybody has his own opinion on this.
Yeah.
Yeah. But therefore, I mean, the more important is it actually to have a speaker that adapts to the acoustic environment.
Sure.
Or that actually can be calibrated to the acoustic environment. And then you can actually take it from room to room and you will get nearly the same feeling and the same
as long as they're
response.
all relatively professional rooms, obviously. Yeah.
Actually, even in a bedroom,
really,
you can. I mean, you cannot take away everything from
Sure.
the room, but you can make it usable. Although always knowing that room is not ideal. I mean, in a bathroom, you will never get something not a proper sound. But if you're sitting in the direct field and have your room and your speaker calibrated, you're at least closer to linearity, and close is a very wide description. But that actually helps. Calibrating speakers always helps, no matter where you are. Even the best room, you need to calibrate the speakers. That's
fantastic. Well, thanks, Eric. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
See you, Matt. Thank you ever so much.
Hey, thank you very much.
Thank you.
For coming.
Thank you for having us. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you very much. Wonderful.
Do you have you enjoyed it? Do you think it's been a success?
It has been wonderful. It has been really good. You know, we have been, of course, we have been doing a lot of work. Our people that have been doing excellent work. You know, for doing all these things, organizing things. It was excellent. Those who were invited, they were here and they were so enthusiastic to listen to what we have been offering. It was wonderful day.
We really enjoyed it. We love this whole idea of the woofer. I'm not going to call it the subwoofer, but the woofer. And it does the job that it's as described. So
exactly.
Great work.
Exactly.
Thanks everyone for watching. Hope you had a marvelous time. Thanks for Genelec for doing this. I was talking to them about this earlier. I feel like there's a responsibility with all of us in the music industry, especially on the gear side. And those like myself that have like channels to talk to people, that it's not always just about, you know, doing products, but coming up with things that are pushing the envelope a little bit. And I think this works really fantastically well. The fact that it's adaptive to each room and it's adaptive to the speakers and how these speakers respond in the room and what it needs to do to make that sound, you know, flat and accurate. And every room we were in was totally different, and every room that we were in sounded good. So it's great stuff. It's not inexpensive. It's not about that, but it's definitely about forward thinking, especially with the immersive stuff. That was actually one of the rooms, you know, when we were talking to Eric, that we were most impressed with, because even though immersive is not tomorrow, not everybody's going to have an immersive room in their house, of course not. But the idea of it and where we're going, and the world of virtual reality and immersive sound is only going to keep growing. At the moment, it's a little tiny thing in its infancy, but it's the future. So it's great to see companies such as Genelec, you know, embracing this and thinking about the future. So we had a great time. Thank you, Metropolis. Great studio, great space. A lot of the people that we're friends with do a lot of stuff here. Lewitt, of course, great company, have quite a presence here, and this is just a wonderful thing. So thanks, Genelec. Thanks, Metropolis. Have a marvelous time recording and mixing.